Hello, everyone. Good morning. Whitney, to begin, what's Bumble?
Good question.
Thank you.
Bumble is an app for your phone, and it shows you people nearby. We launched it with the original intention of romantic connections, but with a much bigger vision for connecting in all capacities. So now we have a friend finder, and we'll soon have a network finder.
So to people who might not be efficient at this particular technology, can you just explain exactly how it might work? They open up their phone, what do they see, what do they do, and then what happens after?
Right, okay, so for a new user, you would open your phone, create a really easy profile, 6 photos, a short bio, and then you're immediately in swiping mode, and you will see people in your area. You'll swipe right for yes, left for no, and when you have a mutual swipe right, it turns into a connection. And then where it gets really interesting is women have to make the first move.
Right, and this is basically what sets your app apart from all of the other dating apps that are out there that people in the audience may or may not be proficient in. And you know, it's interesting because one of the major issues right now in social media is the abuse of women online. We've seen this on Twitter, we see it on Facebook, men typically attacking women, a lot of celebrity women in fact, and pushing them off of these social networks. How does the fact that the woman has to make the first move on Bumble address that?
Right, so we launched with the intent of trying to really increase online accountability. So what we found, and as you've mentioned, when you can hide behind a username or a profile photo, people for some reason lose the kindness ability to, behave the way they should. And so we found that there's really this underlying fear of, rejection. And so when men are on these platforms, generally speaking, not everybody, there's this sense of, I have to make the first move. I have to go hunting. I have to make sure that I go after her. And that puts a lot of pressure on the man. It also, opens up a stream of bad behavior because if the woman doesn't respond, it's taken as rejection. Therefore, you get this, harassment taking place. So when the woman is the one making the first move, he's complimented. He feels flattered on the other end versus in this this state of how do I get her to respond?
Right. I'll say this. I'm 30 years old. I have used probably 6 or 7 dating apps in my life, purely for research purposes, of course.
Of course.
I have used Bumble. And one thing that I found actually was that it was an unbelievable relief to have the burden shift to the woman to make the first move. For the following reason, I'm more than happy to make the first move typically, but dating online, dating anywhere really, is something of a numbers game. So you have to send all of these incredibly clever first messages with perfect grammar over and over every single week, and it's lovely to be able to sit back and say, once the match is made, and there's enough interest there,
there's
she's
interest.
just going to reach out to me. I don't have to worry about it.
Well, what's really great about that as well? You feel relieved, and the women feel empowered and confident, and they also get to drive the conversation. So it really is an interesting shift, and a lot of people have compared it to the Sadie Hawkins dance.
Right.
And if you actually go back to the Sadie Hawkins dance, there's something very interesting to focus on there. Women were very excited about this. They got to guide the scenario, and men were really respectful at the Sadie Hawkins dance. I remember that. I mean, they were kind of like, yep, whatever you want, we're here, we're going to behave. There's a difference between that and prom, if you think about it.
Yes, absolutely. I remember the distinction in stress levels from myself very vividly. It's interesting because, Bumble and all of these other dating apps really click into this larger social change when it comes to online dating. I remember, in the 1990s, in the 2000s, it really was strange. There was an element of social pariah status when people were dating online. It was as if they, are you so desperate that you can't meet somebody using your sort of mammal-to-mammal charm? But I'm really interested in how cultural change is often a social reversion. And I was doing some research for a book that I'm working on, and I found the following quote from an Irving Berlin song in 1909. In the late 19th century, the sort of social norm for dating was that the man would visit the woman's parents, and they would have dinner in the parlor, and the parents would have the ability to mediate and essentially judge the young man and decide if he was right for their daughter. Then you have the invention of the automobile. And the automobile allows the young man to drive the woman away from the house. And the Irving Berlin song is called "Keep Away from the Fellow Who Owns an Automobile." And I'm just going to read the chorus. "Keep away from the fellow who owns an automobile. He'll take you far in his motor car, too darn far for your ma and pa. If his 40 horsepower goes 60 miles an hour, say goodbye forever, goodbye forever." So how do you see this social change, and how do you respond to the social critics who might say that the app that you are building is bastardizing modern romance?
Well, if we can be compared to the car in any capacity, I'm thrilled. So that's awesome. I think we see this with everything. When something new and disruptive kind of takes shape and people in society and culture are using it and engaging with it, there's going to be blowback, right? And you have to look at what was before us. So I'm a firm believer that marketing is a big part of everything, and if you look at these sites that came before Bumble, they almost in the last decade they almost marketed to the desperate, to the people that were lonely and hopeless, and they preyed on that, right? And so therefore, when someone used it, they felt this sense of shame or this sense of embarrassment. And I think that, we're such fast-paced individuals now, and we're all spending most of our time in these phones anyway. I truly think that it's such a benefit to society. It gives you access to people that you would otherwise not have the chance to connect with. And I think it really allows you to stay up to pace with everything else we're doing. We have shortcuts in everything we do.
Right.
I would never encourage anyone to take a shortcut to love, but a shortcut to an introduction, why not?
Right. I mean, I totally agree. The way that I sort of think of it is like, it's like the market for books. It would be weird if somebody said, "How dare you just buy that book on your phone or on your iPad and just read it right there? What are you doing? That's monstrous." But it's the same book. And so why only look for books? Why only prepare yourself to buy a book when you happen to be standing right in front of the brick and mortar establishment? And so when I think about this, this metaphor for dating, it's like, well, why only wait to meet that special person when you're 24, 3 drinks into the night and out at the bar the one time a week on a Saturday? Why not look for that person between meetings on a Monday?
Right.
Why not look for that person in the 15 minutes between dinner and your favorite primetime show on a Wednesday? The search kind of, like so much of the internet, like fills in the gaps in your life, and it feels very natural, I think.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I truly agree with that. And I think that there's really no reason why there should be a stigma around it. And beyond that, meeting someone in a bar or meeting someone at, these occasions that happen so, rarely, it's not fair. I don't want, as a young woman to be, pressured to go out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and try to, find something. You should be able to do that on a business trip or wherever you are at at your own leisure.
Right. No, that's another great point, because it actually speaks to the fact that not everybody has the same appetite for extroversion and alcohol. So, the bar game sort of preferences people with high appetites for both of those
Right.
metrics. But that's not everybody. Like, some people enjoy a quiet introduction. Some people enjoy the happy serendipity of meeting someone at a random moment. It's just that random
Right.
moment sometimes now happens on the 3.5 inches of glass rather than,
It
at a
does.
coffee shop.
It does. And why can't it be both? If I match with somebody, or if, an individual matches with somebody online, they're going to go to that coffee shop. They're going to go to dinner. They're going to meet each other. They'll stumble over each other at the park when they go meet up. Who knows? You can still have your meet cute.
Right.
This is just a great way to meet and gain access. I mean, I remember vividly, a lot of my friends are now in relationships, but one of the great struggles of the college days were how hard it was to actually meet people you had something in common with. And there were all these misconceptions because the only way to meet people was to go to bars.
Right.
Well, maybe that's not indicative of who that person really is, like you were saying. So I really genuinely think it allows you to be yourself beyond, hitting the bar scene every night.
Right. There's another aspect of Bumble that I find unbelievably fascinating, and that, I guess, requires a quick background in terms of network theory and network science. And that's that what you're building is not just a product like a song that sounds the same whether you play it for one person or this audience of 600 or whatever people.
Oh, don't tell me that's
No,
how
I'm
many
sorry,
people
of 7 people. But an app like Facebook or Bumble only works when the network is big.
That's
It
right.
doesn't work if there's only 10 people on the app. It only works if there's 1,000 people, 100 people on the app in your general vicinity. And as a result, it becomes really difficult to get user number one onto the app and say, I promise there will be people here, but right now you're looking at basically an empty app.
Right.
So how did you get over that hump? How did you sort of begin to seed this incredible community of people?
Well, I think it starts with the product and the brand. So you're right. It's not just, another exactly replica of what's out there. We genuinely feel that we were offering something that benefited both men and women, and in a different way, right? So I don't know of another way I can go approach a 21-year-old at college and say, hey, you can actually speak to that guy that you found attractive in your math class. No, I can't. I'll be judged. Someone will think that's strange. Well, you can do it on Bumble because everyone has to play by the same rules. Download. And then you approach the male demographic. Hey, do you want the young woman to make the first move? You don't have to just send out all of these perfectly constructed, great grammar, I'm sure you've got perfect grammar, perfect messages all day long and hope for someone to bite. So we had this unique value proposition. And we believed in it, and we believe in it still so much, that when you are passionate about something and you actually take the time to go yourself and explain and kind of put that forward, people will react to it. And so I personally, and will do next week, and these colleges are going to kick me off campus at some point, but I will be going into sororities like I did 2 years ago. And explaining why this is valuable to their life, and then doing the same thing in fraternities, in certain classes, anywhere that, I don't get removed from the campus, a few years out of college now. But it's really about just seeding it with your message at the helm, and it's crazy how fast people react to that.
Right. I really do want to put a fine point on how sort of subtly ingenious this is, because what you are doing by visiting college campus, you're finding a group of connected single people that you can sort of get with a single strike. I think Silicon Valley VCs sometimes call this a bowling pin strategy, because with a single bowling ball, you get all the 10 pins at once. And what's sort of clever about it, as you've described it to me, is that you go to these campuses and you find these networks that already exist, and you say, here's a group of connected single people. I'll sell at a sorority and then at a fraternity, I'll sell my app to all of them at once. And so I don't have to go around saying, are you a single person? Join my app.
Right.
Are you a single person? Join my app.
Right.
So how have you found that sort of helped to put the network effects on steroids?
So these colleges are very interesting little ecosystems. It's hard to find another area or group of people that generally have the similar intent, right? So even if they're in relationships, their roommate's not. Their friend, in the sorority is not, or wherever. And so it's almost this microphone, like you're saying. If you can go into a dense area and you can kind of shout from the rooftops, someone will hear you and someone will do the marketing for you. You'll find those few people that actually like it, and they almost become these micro marketers for you because they like what you're offering.
So I'm interested, a lot of times a company will put out a product, it'll put out an app like this that has a lot of different uses. And then sometimes the way that the users will, I guess this isn't a great sentence, use it, will surprise the founder. Have there been ways that Bumble, the way that people have interacted with Bumble, surprised you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's actually been baffling. We, of course, launched with the intent of women making the first move and keeping that through and through. But what we did not realize would be the appetite for that carrying through every type of connection. Women and men alike, actually, we have received at this point thousands and thousands of feedback emails, people that don't hear me or you speak about it this way, but they feel what the product offers and they want more from it. So it's been really amazing because the vision from day one was hopefully to always be a bigger connection tool. Yeah. But the users have actually beat us to it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And it's been really, really phenomenal. And I think you made a really interesting point, and I notice this with technology all the time. The intent of the product, you really don't have much control over it because they have the control. And so you have to keep up with them faster than they outthink you, if that makes sense.
Right. Later today, we're going to hear from one of the people who helped found Pokemon Go, which is an augmented reality game that took over everybody's life for approximately 13 hours earlier this year. Longer than that, as he'll explain. But it took over everybody's life, literally, for 13 hours. So is there a conceivable future in which we could blend these two services to really scare the old folk, that online dating and virtual reality would somehow meet?
Well, yes, there could definitely be ways of doing that. Actually, I was at a dinner with him last night, and I asked him the same question. I said, please, can we find a way to do this? And he's great. I think this is really interesting. I think that's definitely in the future. I want to work on perfecting this first and making sure that we have this, just so great for everybody in all these different areas of connecting. But I could definitely see down the road maybe you being able to virtually react to people in the room or on the street through your phone.
Right. What is the most significant way that the app has changed in the last year, let's say?
Oh my goodness, it has changed so much. So originally we put a 24-hour time limit for women to make the first move so that they would realize, everybody has to do this, you're not singled out. And what was interesting was the reaction of women wanting men to only have 24 hours. So we put that in there for men to, respond within 24 hours. And we have evolved so much, actually. We've had so many different features, and we're about to launch Bumble Biz, which will be tremendous.
And what is that?
It will give you access to, networking in your vicinity. So contrary to LinkedIn, which is a great product, but, I'm probably not looking for a job in Japan next year, right? So this gives you access to opportunity actually in your area in real time. And we really want it to be about connection, not the job, not the resume, not what can you offer me on paper. We want it to be about that connection, because if you think about it, and I think most people in this room would be able to agree, there are connections in all of our lives that open the door to what we do, not only professionally, but romantically, in terms of friendship. Everything comes down to human connection, everything. And so we really want to hone in on that and offer that for every different area of life.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I will say that every single person that I know in Washington, D.C. and in New York has Bumble. I've shared with them several sort of strategies for maximizing utility from the app. Could you give one, in case there is anybody on the app, could you give a very quick, maybe your top line strategy for being a successful Bumbler?
Oh, a successful Bumbler. Okay, I'll give a couple tips. So the group photos need to go. No one knows who you are.
It is very confusing, right, exactly. It's like Schrodinger's date. It's like it could be any of you,
right? You don't know who these people are. So group photos are great, but save them for another platform. Yeah, sure. Really showcase yourself. Don't just use a bunch of headshots. If you love outdoor sports, showcase that. A photo tells 1,000 words, 1,000 stories even, and it's important to maximize your personality through these 6 photos that we give you. Also, a bio is imperative. Don't just put 2 photos up and hope for 100 matches. It's not going to happen.
Good. Well, to close, I will say that I did not include any group photos in my Bumble pic. And in fact, slightly embarrassingly, but I'm a proud person, I'll say it, I am celebrating an anniversary with my girlfriend in 2 weeks. I met her on an app called Bumble. Thank you all.
Yay. Thank you. Thank you so much.